All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is like a debut for our little YouTube channel. Gonna talk about a big day today when Gustav Adolf II died in the Battle of Lutzen. And this is a celebrated day. Well, not a celebrated day, but a sort of a memorial day, you could say. And I'm sitting here with Fredrik. Uh, and my name is Joachim, and I've been doing a lot of on the mythology from the Scandinavian, Finnish archives. But Fredrik, this is the first time you are on the screen, so to speak.
Very much so, very much so. So we'll see where we end or begin even. I've always been very interested in history, but in some way, I don't know why, but not the actual written or presented history. I've always been interested in something else, what is not written or what is not spread. So
Yeah, try to find the.
history in the so to speak Västgötasagan, also some kind of historic origin from the west of Sweden, Götaland, but not so much nowadays. Perhaps now it's more what makes a Swede a Swede, how we're connected over to our mother tongues and
Hmm.
things like that. But I'm also, when it comes to 6 November, I've been in a school founded by this Gustav II, and so it's an interesting guy.
For sure, he changed the world, at least Europe. But you have also some ties to this, like a family tie to those Vasa guys, right?
Yeah, I guess like a lot of people in Sweden, I'm related to um, the kings. I don't say that I'm better or worse than anyone else, but there is a paper or some piece of paper I can point to and say that I'm the 15th generation after Gustav I, and I can show the lineage, so to speak, every generation. But I think it's like, I don't know how many it can be, tens of thousands probably in Sweden, if you still live on the land, so to speak.
Mm. But I think that's really interesting. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of the fate that you maybe got into this, wanted to know about your ancestry, and because there are a lot of confusions about the Swedish culture and history today, and I think it deserves to shine a little bit light on what has been happening here in Sweden. So we have made a little presentation. We're gonna.
I'm very curious to see what you have found out. I think you have prepared a little presentation here that we can follow, and I will gladly listen to what you have to say, and then maybe shoot in some little anecdote from somewhere.
Yeah, but I think you're experienced. You have been more on the ground there in Stockholm. I'm not a Stockholm guy, so I've just been following the works of like Herman Lindqvist is a fantastic writer on the Swedish Finnish history. But my main interest is actually the pre-Christian era, or the pre-Vasas, with the modern mythologies. But we're gonna go a little bit into that because they have some ties to this Vasa, with the pagan roots of the Vasa family. Okay.
Yeah, that's also a kind of interest that I have, actually. That it's just I have always been interested in what was before the Christians, so to speak.
Yeah.
Since a normal Swede, it's very hard to have a normal Swede really religious.
Yeah.
To believe in some written text, it's very difficult. So I have also found it quite difficult to believe in the 11th century writings, like from Snorri Sturluson and things like that. Even what they claim to be heathen or Norse mythology, and really believing in some other kinds of gods and offering things in slaying people and stuff.
It
I
doesn't
don't
ring.
really believe it, since
No.
it's so hard to make a Swedish person now believe in such stories. I think it was very difficult even then. So I've been interesting to see, did they live some in some other?
Oh. Oh, you froze a little bit there, but now we're fine. But anyway, the average Swede is like having this. If you go across the world, the Swedish people have a good reputation. You know, it's. I can't really see where the roots to this evil barbaric person that is portrayed in like the Viking series we can see now today. You know, it's just so much shenanigan. What do you call it? It's like they just
Yeah,
assume
it
that
appears
it
to me,
is in one way.
it appears to be some kind of propaganda. That's not.
Yeah.
It's not the actual truth, probably.
No. But we're gonna hit the slides here because we start from the like the beginning with the Vasa.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. We have this is more an overlay. I have this here with chapter 1, the Gustav Vasa rising to power. I'm just gonna skip ahead through these. Okay. We start there with Birger Jarl, the founder of Stockholm. Portrayed below is the Valdemar on the statue there. He's actually the first Christian king of Sweden. Birger made a deal with the king and queen of Finland that resulted in Finland became a part of Sweden. And this has been a lot of discussions about actually how and when Finland became a part of Sweden. And they say that the Swedish people conquered Finland, but the the arguments are very, weak. It's more like the case that one day the Swedish flag just rose in Finland, because Finland was the last country to become Christianized, and there's a mythology from Finland that talks about the Finnish king and queen going into exile during a period of, I think it's like 200 years, and this is where the stories come from when Santa is going around with reindeers with a sled up in Lapinmaa, or the very north part of Finland and Sweden, because it's like connected up there. And this is a really interesting case because Birger Jarl, he moved the capital from Uppsala down to Stockholm, because this is now gonna be like the capital of the Christian world here in the north. But this Birger Jarl, he's also related to the Vasa, right? Do you have any comment on this Birger Jarl? Or?
No, it's only it's about in the years in the middle of the 12th century, then, or 13th century, like 1248, 1250, around there, and the sources that we have, so to speak, are the written ones. And writing in Swedish is very new at that time, at least when we look at the records that are still here. I guess the oldest writing in Swedish is the Västgötalagen, the law of Western Sweden, and that's from 1220 something. So it's very rare to find something that is written from these times. So
it must be written by a bishop or something, right?
It should be so. Or some law person.
Yeah, because you see, it was forbidden for common man to read or write during the 1200s. It was the church had some kind of monopoly over this system. So it was. We're gonna get to that later when we get the writing system here. But this is important. It's like. Birger Jarl, he's more like the Jarl is an earl, so that's an indication straight to a different system that they had in in the Catholic world, because jarl, träl, and king and all this is a pagan society system. It has nothing to do with the Catholics. They wanted more or less to kill off all the kings, because now Jesus is the king of the world. Okay, we go forth. Okay, this is leading up to... This is the Stockholm bloodbath. It's in the 1500s, early 1500s. And Stockholm bloodbath was an outrageous crime, you could say. In Stockholm, there lived only a handful of people. I think like the elite of Sweden lived in Stockholm. It's only maybe a couple of thousand people. And during this event, they killed off all the important aristocrats in Sweden. You can see here on the picture, it's just heads are rolling down the street there, barrels full with heads. But it's interesting. This Gustav Vasa guy, his father was killed during this event, and Gustav Vasa, he was also supposed to be there, but he was late. There was some kind of meeting or party that this Christian tyrant, they call him, Christian Tyrann. What was the name in Danish? Is the Christian the
good.
the Christian the Good? Yeah, you can see there. But it's interesting. They had some kind of party that they were inviting all those people, because this Danish king was now king over Sweden, and he invited all the aristocrats to the castle, I think it was, or some kind of, I don't know really the details, but they locked them all in, and there was some dispute over some kind of, everyone in there had been signing a paper over, I think it was some kind of, they made some kind of rebellion against the Danish.
Yeah, it was a church matter. So I think it was the bishop from Skara pointed out all the people that had signed this document.
Yeah.
And then he more or less forced the Danish king to kill them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be a true Christian.
Yeah, the
So
case.
it was a church blackmail, you could say.
Yeah, but the case was like that. First, it was like they wanted to behead like one guy or two guys, but then some girls stood up and said, "But we all signed a paper." And then they wanted to find this paper. They found the paper and they brought the paper, and then they had some kind of evidence. So they have a reason to kill off all those people. And there's like a story where Gustav Vasa is sitting in like a window, because the execution happened on the Gamla stan, also on the square there in the old town in Stockholm, and they said that the blood was running through the streets there, but he managed to survive.
Stone paved.
Yeah. We're gonna jump to the next. Okay. This is a memorial stone from where Gustav Vasa landed on the shores of Sweden, because after this Stockholm bloodbath, Gustav Vasa, he made a trip to Germany. He made some loans. He bought some mercenary soldiers with those money that he had borrowed, and he was prepared to make a stand against this Christian the tyrant and reclaim Sweden from the Danish. So this is like a very famous stone, actually. I know when the French family were in exile, they came to Sweden, and they also wanted to see this Gustav landing stone.
Where is it actually?
I'm not really sure. I think it's I had it written down. It's like in the, I don't remember. I have never visited myself, I'm really bad with the geography down there in Stockholm, but or southern part of Sweden.
I see.
You can maybe look it up really quick if you want, but this is an important event because this gave rise to the Vasalopp. We have like he wanted to rally the people, and there's a big story where he go from Dalarna down in the southern Sweden, and he tried to recruit the Karlarna. They are really like stubborn and the most rebellious people we have in Sweden, and he made he never, when he was down there, he couldn't, the people wasn't really sure if they wanted to follow Gustav Vasa, because he wasn't really a big name or anything. And he made this trip. He was on his move to Norway on the skis. And in the story they said that those Dal people, they chased after him on the skis. You know, they. So we even have a tradition today where we call the Vasa Lopp, or the Vasa race, where it's like a symbolic thing where they are chasing the king because they want him back to fight for their freedom, so to speak.
Yeah, it's something that every Swede should do. So I have. Have you?
No, I have never done it.
I actually looked it up. This Vasa landing stone. It's on an island called Stensö.
Okay.
Outside Kalmar, somewhere. So it's in the south of Sweden.
All right. Well, it's a big story.
Yeah, and in those days, Kalmar, or the border there between the southern part of the district of Småland, it has a border towards Blekinge. And Blekinge was Denmark in those days.
Okay.
So
Yeah, for sure.
to Denmark.
But the important thing to point out is that, you know, they were, you know, they were a little bit against this Catholic tax system that was coming. So those aristocrats like Gustav Vasa and those, they were opposing this. You could say it was starting to rebel against it, because, like we mentioned before, this Birger Jarl, this is 1250 when Sweden got officially Christianized, you know, became like a part of this Catholic taxation system. So a lot of things happening. This is 250 years later or so. So okay, let's move on.
Yeah,
What you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it was, as I see it, if Sweden was actually Christianized by force, probably then in the early year 1050 perhaps, then it's interesting to me that it took almost 200 years then to have some kind of order, so things could go back to work in some sense.
Yeah, I've heard that those Vasa people, like his father and so, they were like pillaging churches and really, because it was like knights, you could say, because we have this at the same time. All this is rising about.
Find in the history book.
Yeah, at the same time, this Knights Templar order is coming up too, and this is like, in the mythology from Finland, this is portrayed more like a pagan organization with, you know, those who wanted to preserve the pagan system or mythology. I don't want to call it a religion, because it wasn't. It was more like a mythology, like in the Hindu culture down there in India. You know, it's a different, it's a mythology. But
from some kind of, as I see the word religion, it's, you have to.
Religion.
Means, yeah, precis. Re means to do something again and again, and then legio, you have to swear your oath to some legal system on a regular basis.
Religion also, this or typ like a peon legion. Also, it's something that you reorganize, you could say. Religion. I see it's like this some kind of. But it's basically the destruction of the pagan world, you could say. It's the religion. Oh yeah. Anyway, we go forth. Yeah, he managed, as we all know, this Gustav Vasa, he managed to assemble or rally the Swedish people and kick the Danish out, and he actually fled, I think, but we don't need to go into details here. It's more about the crowning of the Gustav Vasa, and he actually kicked the bishop out, the Catholic, and we're gonna go into that. But it's the crowning in itself. It was delayed. It was the chancellor of Sweden for a while, and you know this like a he he was playing this really carefully, you know, how to become king. But in the end, it was like people were begging him to become king. It's kind of interesting. It's still today you can say, no, I cannot do that. I cannot take that position. But he really, really wants it, you know.
Exactly. But the Swedish way is consensus.
Yeah.
So you have to agree on everything. So no one is allowed to say, I want to do this.
No.
It's kind of built into to the way we look at things.
Yeah, still today.
It's really different to other cultures.
Yeah. It's like the people have to beg before you can agree, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You have to lift on every stone and see, isn't there anyone else that can be better than this suggestion? No, he is the best. We must ask him.
But this was also outrageous in the rest of Europe because.
So it has to.
Is that a problem?
No. I just thought of, since I've grown up in Strängnäs, and that's where he was actually crowned, I think. Yeah. So that's really interesting. And that was, today we have the 6th of November, but that was on the 6th of June, so 6
yeah.
6.
But this is more like building up so we see where he comes from, because the Sweden became like the first Protestant country to become like free from the church. So it became like a stronghold almost. And I know that a lot of Germans aristocrats also got some positions in Sweden after this too. So, but now he had a lot of loans to pay back to the Germans. So
the Lübeck, the city of
the Lübeck, yes. Germany as it is wasn't existing. It was more like small provinces, of course, like Lübeck and Brandenburg and all those kind of hertigdömen, or what we call it. It's more like the one duke. What do you call like a land? I don't know what's the word for it in English.
What?
Like one land or district. Yeah, one district you could say.
Yeah.
Okay, we go to the next one. This is one of the more interesting things, I think. When Gustav Vasa became king, he also became head of the Swedish church, that is the newly founded church, you could say, this Church of Sweden. And Gustav Vasa has his own Bible that is called the Gustav Vasa's Bible. And this is really important because now, instead of the Catholic or the Christian way of handing out information, he, with the printing press, he gave out the gift of reading and writing to all people who wanted to learn to read and write. So this is a big change. I could say it's like it parallels with the internet today almost.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Marshall McLuhan's the medium is the message.
Yeah.
Since the way of communication or spreading news or knowledge, information perhaps, is very much connected to the ways of communication. So and Gustav Vasa really did something there, since he ordered the writing of the Bible in Sweden.
Yeah, but also this, that the people could read and find out for themselves.
Yeah.
If they, because before it was you could only listen to what the priest had to say. But of course, it took a while before more or less the people were literate. But this is something that is rarely spoken about, that they had monopoly on the reading and writing, because they really had. But you could be killed if you had knowledge of reading and writing outside of the church before this Protestant move. So it's like a really one gift, you could say.
I don't know. When do you think it was that they changed so that the information system from the church was in the Christian world, at least in the Western Christian world, was spread using Latin.
Yeah, it was
So
only
the
Latin.
Pope wrote something in Latin, and then it was spread, and then
Copied.
so the Latin was the
Yeah.
exactly, and that's so Latin is obviously then a constructed language that cannot be misunderstood. It's very, very strict.
Yeah. But it was only the
Compared to
church
Swedish.
people who know about this language. So
Exactly, but then everyone didn't have to speak Latin,
no.
since the priest did the translation from Latin to the local language. I guess
I'm
it's
not-
not like in the eastern part of the Christian world where everyone now speaks some kind of Slavic language.
But it gave
Or in
also
the Muslim world, when almost everyone speaks Arabic.
But if you go back to it has some other changes too. With I know that the bishops that was appointed underneath the Swedish church, they were allowed to have a family too. So there was they changed this with the. And also, I don't think it was really that strict if you wanted to like change partners and all this. So I think life in itself became a much more easier, so to speak. It's yeah. Anyway, well, the common people, they had to be more strict, but it's a slow process, of course. It starts from the top here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for. And this we comes to now we have like the foundation to this Gustav Adolf the Great. It's the guy we are like having a memorial for today. It's his death day. Gustav Adolf the Great, he was like an educated warrior king. He was killed in the Battle of Lutzen the 6th of November 1632. He was son of Karl the Ninth, and Karl the Ninth was, I think he's not the first son of Gustav Vasa, but he's one of the sons. Because Gustav Vasa, so like we looked on before, he had many sons and daughters. And that's a big story, but we're not gonna go into Eric and Eric and Johan and all those. They were like fighting and killing each other almost.
Exactly.
But ain't you like descending through Eric, right?
Yeah, according to the papers. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Eric is the firstborn. He was educated to become like he was king of Sweden for a while, and he spoke like 10 languages, and he was into astrology. He was like a really super educated king. Meanwhile, his father had no education at all. He well, maybe some kind of education, but not this new Renaissance kind of education. I think that's really
Pre Renaissance.
Yeah, of course.
Must have been. He must have been born in the 1540 or something.
Yeah.
Or even earlier.
Yeah, even earlier.
1530. Yeah, and that was Gustav Vasa's first marriage, from that.
Yeah.
From the finish lines.
Exactly. This is the Gustav Adolf the Great. He is descending from Karl, and that's a half brother to Eric, the legitimate king, so to speak. But he was killed by his own brother Johan. But anyway, Gustav Vasa. This is the 1632. He was killed, but a lot of things has been happening up to this point, because now when Sweden had taken control of their own all the taxation. I know that this is the 32 years war that this Gustav Vasa the Great were fighting in, and during this time they were melting down all the church silver and church everything was emptying out from all churches in Sweden, and even the Bibles, the Catholic version Latin Bible, they used the papers from from the books to put in the cannons as burning, when they were fighting against those Catholic forces. So there was like a symbolic. It's kind of, this was the attitude. But at this point, Sweden has become like a really well functioning with the state apparatus, so to speak.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, and we even had like the banking. You could say that this Gustav Vasas, they had their own bank, and he had so much money, but he put it everything. He didn't keep it for himself. He invested into Sweden. He really wanted Sweden to become something, you could see. And he even reformed this Gustav Adolf the Great. He reformed the military system in Sweden, where we have. You could say he's the inventor of the modern warfare, the modern way of dealing with the, with the militia. But before that, we had like big squadrons with pikes, and there you have the bows. But the Swedish people, they knew everything. They had a little pistol. The pistol is actually a Swedish invention that is invented during this time too, and yeah, it's really interesting. The Swedish steel was the biggest export. We had monopoly on that, and also the tar that come from burning the gran, the what is called, the not the evergreen, pine. No, not pine. Yeah, the economy was booming. We had monopoly on a lot of stuff, like the hemp also. I know in Finland they grew a lot of hemp. They had a special method so they could grow hemp like 3 meters tall, and it was perfect for sales. And we had to remember, this is before the American, before even America became something.
And it's really strange that the hemp has completely disappeared from Sweden.
That's because of America.
It's also interesting that it's very hard to find any hemp farming plotted out on a map on anywhere, on any farm. Since these kings needed a lot from the bureaucracy, so they started to writing down what every farmer was doing, so to speak, in smaller and smaller districts. But hemp farming is never actually written out, and I guess since it grows like weed actually.
But it is weed.
So it's sorry.
It is weed. But I just have to point out this hemp. The best climate to grow this hemp is actually up here in the north, because we have this 24-hour sunlight during the summer. Because if you don't have that, it will start to bloom, and then it's over. So
but the thing is that it grew so forcefully, so to speak. So they didn't have to have a specific area for it. So they could have it just behind the barn.
Yeah, but I know in the skärgård.
Like nettles, it grows everywhere.
They grew it on the archipelago between Stockholm and Finland, on the islands.
But I think they used it a lot for clothing and.
Yeah, of course.
So it's really interesting. Maybe you didn't know.
And ropes.
The cheap ones from America, we call them the cloth. We call it denim.
Mm-hmm.
Denim. But that's actually from Nîmes, from the French city of Nîmes, and there they grow a lot of hemp. So you could get from cotton, you could get the same quality as the Nîmes, also the hemp cloth from Nîmes.
All right.
So that's where the denim word comes from.
Interesting. Yeah, we can be playing with words here all day, but there's so much buried into the Swedish language. Just have to point it out with you can see in the names of places also here in Sweden. We have a lot of hampkärn, and hamp is also hemp. It's also this weed, so to speak. But before
I just thought about it earlier, but I didn't really say it. But so what Gustav Vasa did was he actually took the taxation that the Catholics brought here.
Yeah.
So people had been used to giving away like some percentage
10%
of everything they made somewhere, and that he just stepped in and took it instead, so to speak.
Yeah, he put it into the state. This is capitalism. He created a nation state, so to speak.
Yeah, and then I have a really interesting thing that you don't think about maybe if you speak Swedish. If you speak English, you think about taxation and paying tax. But if you say tax backwards, it becomes skatt. And that is what tax is in Swedish. So it's just tax but backwards.
Skatt. Skatt is also treasure.
Exactly.
It's something that is piling up. But this Gustav Vasa, the first, he left a huge vault with, he really liked to collect. So when he's,
And then it was not only Gustav Vasa, but also his first son, Eric. He started a lot of wars, I think, against. So they had access to a lot of money from somewhere.
Yeah, but the mines, we have a lot of mines here with it's actually the Swedish steel. We made the best cannons because the Swedish people were actually the first to sink another ship with only cannons. And it was because of the inventions of the Swedish with the cannons. They built a ship that was called Mars Makalös. They actually found it. It was 74 meters long. And there are some almost like mythological stories about this ship because yeah, it had like 260 cannons, steel cannons, and they just sank. From the German perspective or the Lübeck perspective, it's like they opened up the gates of hell when they bombarded with this. But before that, they had to, the cannons were only for like shooting at masts and maybe, disrupting the enemy. But the Swedish had made such cannons that they could now sink other ships with only cannons. So artillery became like the new thing. So the opponents were terrified. So they changed like the rules of naval battle with those new ships, and this is rooting back to the old Viking ships also. I think Sweden has always been on the forefront with the naval, with the good oak and those hemp sails that was much stronger than the other types of sails, because you needed those long hemps to grow those sails. Nobody else could do that.
Yeah, and then the tar to make the ships sustainable.
You need that. The English Empire could never become what it was without the Finnish and Swedish tar. It's only when America came around that Sweden lost its monopoly, because they have sort of the same climate there in the north. All right, let's see what the next picture is. Okay. This is a really interesting. This is when Gustav Adolf the Great is landing in Pomerania near Wolgast in the 1630. This is when he proclaimed war against what do you call it, the German Roman Empire. This with his new inventions and new military tactics. This is like. I know that there was a big, like a propaganda wave also, that was going on there in Germany. With they sent it out like papers like the lion from the north is coming and saving us, and there was I would say this is like when propaganda was used. For the very first time in a big way like this, to reach all the common people, because you couldn't really do this before the printing press and all that. And just the word propaganda, pro-pagan, anda is like spirit. It's a word that is pro-pagan, propaganda, pro-pagan anda. Have you thought about that? It has some root there in something.
I've heard it from who.
But
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But then again, I read some scholarly book, doktorsavhandling, some doctorate thesis about this 30-year war, and then how it was only chimneys in a 300-kilometer wide stretch southward in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
After after the wars. It was, I think, the population shrunk with like 90%.
Oh.
So it was not only good.
No. But I know that a lot of the common people were cheering when Gustav Vasa and the Swedish soldiers came to a lot of districts. So they had something called the brandskatt, like a fire taxation. Either they paid the tax or they burned the city down. So they were collecting huge amount of money during this conquest. This conquest about making a stand against the Catholic Church in Europe. So they were only going after the bishops and the church forces. Of course, I think at its peak it was like 1 million people following this trail of soldiers and merchants and all. It became a big folk move, one movement. So there's a lot of statues down in Europe you can find of Gustav Adolf, and they put this newly found Swedish state as a nation apparatus, so to speak, statsapparat, in place in those cities where he conquered, either by force or they just opened the gates. But essentially what I see from this is that they wanted to bring the Swedish system and give it to these other not nations, but they wanted to reform from the Catholic Church back to something they wanted to get rid of this and give the people
maybe end the feudal system with
they wanted to give back the power to the people from this taxation system, so they could, like, you can see the Church of England is also reforming, and he becomes the head of the English Church. But this is 8 years after the Swedish Church is founded, so the Swedish were really making setting an example, and with those new inventions. And they even had this field cannon that was, you can drive it, you could have it like with one horse. The enemy needed to have like 16 horses to drive around their cannons. So they took the opportunity. But at this time, wars and stuff were normal. It was more normal for a country, or it's not called countries, but it was more normal that you were living underneath war than peace, so to speak. So I'm not legitimizing that massive bloodshed, but this is what happened. Let's go forth. Yeah, I already talked about this with the new military inventions. He was actually on the forefront in the, he was leading his army like a real. If you're gonna have war, you're gonna be first in the line if you're in charge of the war, and he did exactly that. This Gustav Vasa. I'm gonna.
And just to stress here, when you both Gustav the First and Gustav the Second were Gustav Vasas, but now when you mean Gustav the Second.
Yeah. It
Vasa
could be the grandson.
So it's not exactly. So it's not confused.
Yeah, you can get confused with they are all having the same name.
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah, I've been already going through with the propaganda machine, and this is just pictures from the like paintings. But we come to the defeat at Lutzen. This is actually today he died at this is a little district, you could say, in Germany. There was a big fog that day, and they I think the case was that it was becoming winter, and there was a guy that retreated with all his army back to his keep, because they thought, now we're going into winter dwelling, we cannot. Gustav Vasa is also gonna do the same, so he took the opportunity and was gonna attack this Lutzen. And there was like rainy and muddy, they couldn't really drive through it. It was a lot of problems that day. And this Gustav Vasa, we can imagine in a a big war like that, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's noises, and the fog is, you can't really see. So big confusion during this fight. And Gustav Vasa, he was leading a cavalry. What do you call cavalry? Yeah,
cavalry.
yeah. And I think he was like first shot in his arm, so he was wounded, but he fighted on anyway, and he was shot in the back at some point. And there has been big speculation about who did this and what happened there, but this is basically the end of this rally, so to speak. But the wars continued without him. But now the great Protestant leader was out.
Yeah, so from what I read somewhere, it's the rest of Europe was kind of, since none of the fighting was done in Sweden actually.
No.
So the rest of Europe was very tired after all this fighting.
Yeah.
So everyone thought that, oh, well, finally the war is over. But then the Swedish war machine was to such an extent built up from what's it called? Paid soldiers.
Yeah, mercenaries.
Legionaries. Mercenaries. So they didn't want to stop fighting since I guess it's they kind of shared the treasures.
Yeah.
when a city had fallen. So they didn't stop fighting, even though
Okay, yeah.
everyone thought they would. So it carried on. I don't know when the actual peace was written.
I don't really know.
Years, it was 15 years after or something.
I'm just thinking about the consequences of all this and the thought behind it. Because at this point he held the power of Europe in his hand also. So he could have stopped. He could have done something different, but and he never told his strategies to anyone. He didn't even trust his closest generals and so. So nobody really knew what his vision was. But yeah, we will never find out. But it's interesting also pointing out that we're coming to that, but what was? Oh, I lost the thread there. Let's just go to the next. Yeah, this Axel Oxenstierna. This is he was like you could say the founder of the Swedish state apparatus. He was residenting in Stockholm and managing everything like a king there. Meanwhile, Gustav Adolf the Great was having all these wars. And it's interesting, Oxenstierna is, I see it as a direct association to the previous pagan system also. It's called the bull star, you could say in English. It's the horned animal is really important in this mythology that is coming from the north. You can
and the star as well.
Yeah, the star is a symbol for knowledge, I think. The North Star. This the pentagram is is often depicted as a star of knowledge, or you could say it's a famous quote from this Axel like, look my child, how with how little wisdom the world is governed. That's like a quote from this Axel. But it's interesting. You can see his I think he must have had a hand in this banking and everything. He was managing everything. Some people even speculate that it is this guy that made the order to kill off this Vasa, but we will never know.
Mm-hmm. But was he in since Gustav II's daughter was more or less raised without her father then?
Yes.
She was raised to be a king, but wasn't this Axel guy involved a lot in her upbringing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I didn't include his daughter, but I think that's a big story to tell also. This Gustav Vasa II, didn't have any sons. So when he died, his daughter Kristina, right? Yeah, she became Queen of Sweden, and she converted to become a Catholic later.
Amazing.
A really big scandal, you could say. She is even buried and cemented into the walls of Vatican. There, she's buried like one of the popes.
Yeah.
So this was a big scandal. But I don't know. I've been thinking about that. She
talk about propaganda war.
yeah, but also she made an academy down there that is called the King's Academy. So in the Catholic world, kings were like forbidden. Jesus is the only king. So maybe she's like, this could be like a covert also. I don't know. This is just me speculating, but she made a King's Academy down down in the yeah. So I don't know. It's just speculations, but she became a Catholic. It was a big scandal. Let's go. Yeah, this Riksbanken is we need to mention this. This is the world's first central bank, and I think it has, during those wars, I think they must have been making like connected to this bank, right? I'm not so into this, but I just wanted to point out that Sweden established the first central bank in the world, and it was founded but under another name in 1619, but it became like established in the 1668. So those wars must have been, we saw that Sweden were now becoming like a big power in Europe also. So even though Gustav Vasa's death, they carried on with, because you can see, I think they have some big generals that were going in his spirit, and I don't know all the names, but it's on the details. You can see. I just thought it was really interesting to point it out. And you have been working
really interesting
in banking, and that's interesting.
Yeah, I've been, but I also find it very interesting that Sweden has been testing ground for so many things that have become spread throughout the globe later, but not the least this central banking system, and maybe, hopefully, we can be the first then to get rid of it as well.
Yeah,
Since we have suffered from it the longest.
of course. I don't think the agenda was that Sweden was gonna take over the world. I don't think that. I think more that they wanted to get rid of the Catholic system and give back like the power to the people, like the aristocrats foremost. Like you can see King Henry is taking after and doing like. So we get those nations. So we have the English people. Yeah.
And even France was also, now today it's called to be Catholic, but it was very, very tight, so to speak. In these years, when Gustav Adolf was running the ship, so to speak, it was very close to 50-50, I guess, between Protestants and Catholics, even in France. So it's they have had a bloody internal.
Yeah, they had no remorse for the Catholics up here. I know that there are laws. If you even had contact with a Catholic up here in Sweden, you could. That was it.
And it wasn't until the new legislation in Sweden, 1860, that Catholics were allowed to have positions within the bureaucracy.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I know about the laws that, Sweden was all free of Catholics. I know that this Jesuit order were really like trying to infiltrate, and I think those people got hooked into this Gustav Adolf the Great's daughter, those Jesuits, and it's a funny story because during those wars down in Europe, they shipped a lot of literature back up to Sweden, and this young girl, she was looking through all those books that came in, and there was a lot of Catholic books. So
Uh,
so it became like, yeah, you should be careful. You know, books can be really powerful, even influencing the king's daughter there.
yeah.
Okay, let's go for. I wanted to talk a little bit about heraldry. This is the Uppsala heraldry. This Uppsala is the old capital of Sweden. You can see this a lion. And heraldry is actually the first flags in the world were used by the Danish, actually. So flags and symbols like this are a Nordic invention also. But heraldry was really important during these days. You can, if you go into more details about this 30 Years' War, you can see what kind of heraldry were popping up. You can see in Brussels, it looked like some kind of heraldry dedicated to the Vasa, even still today. You know, this Brussels. I think.
The European flag.
Yeah,
The blue bottom with yellow stars.
No. If you go into the actual coat of arms heraldry of Brussels, I wish.
The city of Brussels.
Yes. It's. I think he did. There's so much we can investigate into this because, like we said, this is a pagan. I see it as a, you know, on the surface it looks like some kind of Christian. This Protestant. It's a Protestant. Alltså you're Protestant. Alltså du protesterar. You reject something. So it's only a rejection. But what are they gonna replace it with? That's the big question. Because they were really taking the churches apart. Even the bells they melt down to become cannons, and so they need to replace it with something. But we haven't really got to that point. But
Exactly.
I just wanted to point out that heraldry tells a lot, and it was really, really important before. Like this lion is a symbol of the king. Often the red is a color of the, but the yellow, I see that's the yellow it has to do something with the sun too. You know, it's the higher up the rankings of the heraldry, the more yellow you could say. You are closer to the yellow. This is a study in itself. We're not going to go into it, but I just wanted to point out that heraldry was really considered an important thing back in the days. So if people want to investigate and look up heraldry, we maybe make a program on this someday, but it's something I just wanted to point out. Yeah. Talk a little about the Knights Templars. You could say that all those kings were Knights Templars of the Vasa family. And this double-headed eagle was like the crown jewel of the Knights Templar, like in symbology, because it is this two-headed. We know from this mythology from Finland, it has come out that this double-headed eagle is representing two heads of this Knights Templar order. So we had like the World Master and Grand Master. And this was an organization, you know, today it has lost its roots, I could tell. You can see, I can see that in the French revolutions, there were infiltrations into those orders. What I have been investigating can tell about that. But this is like a pro-European, Western civilization organization that wanted to get rid of this Catholic system that are coming from the south. It's like you have the Islam, you have the Catholics, you have the more Orthodox in Russia today, but all this is coming up from the south. So in my eyes, this Knights Templar order, they acted like Christians, but behind the scenes they wanted to preserve like the pagan symbolism, like heraldry and all those the legacy from our past that has been it has been destroyed systematically by those religions, so to speak. And it's the Catholic that came into the west, and you have the Orthodox that came into the east, because Russia was also one kind of pagan system before it became a religion underneath the Orthodox. But it's interesting. You can see there's a lot of symbolism. We're not gonna be able to go into all the symbolism today, but it's almost a lifetime study, I would say. Do you have any comments on this? Have you read into anything about the Knights Templars?
No, not nothing actually. I know absolutely nothing. So it's really interesting to hear. But we can maybe do that some go into it more in detail with some.
I can say that one of the last head of this Freemason order was the Romanov family in Russia. You can see on their sigil they have the double-headed eagle. Even today Putin brought that back, so that brought my eyes. You know, everything is about heraldry and symbolism. That's like you could say that's the more heathen way, because, and also the Catholics are using this kind of symbolism. They put a dead guy on a cross, and in the heathen world the cross is there's two kind of cross. In the Finnish they call it rasti and risti and rasti. Yeah. And
Risti.
It's a symbol of Thor. It looks like a T, but it's the Thor symbol, and Thor is the best friend, or you can have a Thor friend, a heart friend. Thor is also the heart. So now they put a dead guy. Why is it always a white guy that is suffering? You know, it's not like there's an Arab sitting on the cross in the churches. It's a white guy. It's a European guy sitting on a cross, suffering or are dead. So that become your best friend, a dead. In symbolic terms, it becomes a dead person, your best friend. So.
and here I think it would be really interesting with the Knights Templar if they wanted to not only have that information system with a very mental model. You have to read the book. You have to think about some the world way away somewhere, but instead have some kind of nature-based system.
Yeah.
With actual pictures of actual things. And,
yeah, but we haven't even talked about what pagan is, but
no.
They wanted to preserve. So we had so we can have archaeology even, or some kind of reference back to our roots. Because if you take the root is the Thor also. Root backwards is Thor. So with this double-headed eagle, this organization, now with the French Revolution later in the 1700s, all this is been blowing up. They actually moved to America. But we're not gonna go into that too much today, but it's just a little. So we see as those Freemason orders and all this is so bad. Everyone hates it today, but I can tell for sure that they have lost the roots, because they have the heads has been chopped up. It's structured like that. You need. It's because it was so underneath the surface. Everything had to be happening so. You know, it needed to be structured like that. It cannot be some kind of open, or it's a secret organization, of course. And they were meeting at those spas, like a Roman bathhouse. This is the places where they met and had you can see it's really interesting if you read like diaries from this field marshal, what is called he was living during the Gustav III times, one really but anyway, what's his name? I have it on the tongue. It's this von Fersen. Yeah, you can see in his diary he's going on a health trip little now and then, just like a little footnote. He's going to this bathhouse, and he was also a high-ranking like Freemason Templars. Everything is like under this.
Von Fersen guy.
Yeah, he was also one. But I just wanted to point out that all those Swedish kings were Knights Templars, at least the Vasa ones. Okay, we go from next picture.
Honestly, the battery in my computer here is running out. So
Yeah, we are soon done.
yeah.
I just wanted. This is a runestone. You can see the Templar. We have the Templar symbol on the top there. It's one rusty, not on risty. The risty is one cross with
It's
the.
the cross.
Yeah. This is
Yeah,
a symbol.
like an X.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the rusty. Yeah.
It's one
Then
symbol of
the
information.
Christie is more is cross. Yeah.
It's one symbol of information also. You have everything is coming from the Midgård, but this is a reference to one information system coming out from one central point, very like. And the Knights Templars, they are using this symbolism also. So it's just one little detail in the preservation of this symbolism from the ancient past. Let's go to the next one. This is one really famous stone that they found on Gotland. This, in the mythology from Finland, they say that this stone is around 9,000 years old. Probably a little bit older also, but they found a lot of these rune stones. This is not even rune stones, it's picture stones. There's no runes. The runes are something that came, you can see on much later.
I wonder how they do the kind of classic archaeologists. It's in a history book. They would never say that it is 9,000 years old.
No.
So I wonder how could you even start to guess? It must only be guessing.
Yeah, but they are only basing on the archaeology findings at that time, or the presented history that is they have been making up, or what is there, because now you can see there's a lot of stuff coming up from the archaeology world, and the school system is not catching up with the newest research, so to speak. So what we learn in school is out of date, you could say.
Speaking of schooling, I think one of the guys actually forced this.
I'm losing you a little bit there, Fredrik.
Public school system into it was Martin Luther.
Oh yeah.
One of the founding thinkers behind the Protestant.
Yeah. He was a philosopher, right? You always need like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When he stamped up the 144 theses on the some church door somewhere. That was on the 31st of October, wasn't it? Just a week before today.
I'm not sure. I'm not so into. I haven't read much
the
about.
Beginning of the Protestant movement. But he was a very strong proponent. He really said that the population has to be taught proper thinking. Otherwise, we can never change them.
But that's what they wanted to. I think the Protestant movies really they wanted to give the power to the people to think for themselves, instead of just being blasted by the.
Yeah, he was at least a leading figure in the.
Of course. But looking at this stone, I just wanted to give some kind of background behind, like what was before the Christian way. You can see this. So much to interpret on this stone, but you can see on the left corner that's a symbol of the Valhalla vault, and in this mythology from Finland, it's located underneath this Baltic shield. As we have a lot of bedrock, and in this mythology story, it's said that it's a big vault or a chamber underneath where it's a pagan ritualistic temple, so to speak. So there's a lot of things moving with we have a movement in Finland where they're trying to uncover those hidden treasures, so to say. You can say hidden. It's it's hidden.
No.
But and Sleipnir with the 8 legs, it's representing the 8 powers that the pagans were living after. But I'm not gonna go into much about the pagan system. We have been making a lot of videos on this. I'm gonna put the links below if people are interested in the more pagan stuff. But anyway, we go forth. Yeah, this is another stone. It's a bad picture, but they had the cosmology was a big part of the pagan world. You can see how well this runestone is made. Also, it's so old. You have the spiral up there. It's supposedly the what do you call it, the force, the yeah,
Centrifugal kraft.
exact, the centrifugal force.
Yeah.
And it was believed that the spirits traveled. You know, they burned all the pagans. They didn't bury them into the ground with their skeleton. They burned everyone on one hill. You can find in Sweden, in Finland, everywhere a stenröse, also like one pillar of stone. If you find often on a hill, you can find pillars of stone. This is the place where they burned people, and they took the ashes and sent it to the Holy Land, so to speak. They call to Finland, to hell. And we have references there. The swastika is a reference to this place also in this mythology, and it's really interesting. It's nothing bad about it, but it's.
But that would actually explain why there are so little remains found from people. If everyone was really
Absolutely, absolutely. They had family trees that were representing the family instead of graves, so they put the ashes of the people underneath the oak tree or the ash tree, depends on what class of family you came from. And via the tree, the soul went up to the atmosphere, and via the centrifugal force back to Valhalla, so to speak. Okay, let's move on. Here are some coins. Not coins, it's more like necklaces. This is found on Gotland, actually. Dated around 900 AD, also before Christ. BC, you say. BC. You see the swastika?
Then again, how can you possibly guess something?
Yeah, it's just guessing. It's just guessing, but
don't you think? Yeah.
But that's how they date it, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So they are pretty old.
They are pretty old. They're pre-Christianity, of course. But you can see this. It's a guy riding on a bull, something. It's always the symbolic stuff that is important. You have the almost like a Templar cross, but this one rusted there also. But the swastika is really important in this story. It's
we could have one program about one coin.
Maybe we do that in the future, but this is just we wanted to talk a little bit about the Swedish role in Europe and how important it has been, for good or bad. But I think it has been mostly for the good of the people, because they wanted to give the writing and information system the power to people to decide for themselves, or to at least choose what they want to have for information. Of course there was a lot of they wanted to I know that the Swedish kings, they wanted monopoly over what books and all kind of stuff that was going out to the people, but you have all those revolutionaries coming with anti-propaganda and stuff against the king also, so it's a double-edged sword, is the way they went. But anyway, you can find a lot of this stuff on the archives. I think there's like a national archive here in Sweden where you can look through thousands and thousands of objects that you have been finding. But anyway, this is just a few of them. The horned animal is really important in the mythology, coming from Finland at least. Let's go. Yeah, this is the close, the ending. What's the Gävlebocken about? This goat, the horned. In this mythology that I've been researching from Finland, the goat, the symbol of the devil, so to speak. It's the most positive and highest, so to speak, symbol of the Norse world. It's a reference to the Allfather. You could say Santa Claus or this, but it's a big story in itself. I just wanted to leave it off and have not people wondering what this is all about with the bock or the goat symbolism. And the Catholic world, they made the goat symbol to be like the most negative symbol, and
the symbol for the underworld.
Yeah, but that's true in one sense, because this temple I was talking about, they are trying to excavating in Finland. It's an underworld temple. It's a underverk. It's an it's a work within or underneath, an underverk in Sweden. Ett underverk. Underverk is one craft actually, so it's something that is made by people. It's a temple.
Yeah, but also in Swedish, under is both under and wonder.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. But it's about the it's about the Valhalla vault, so to speak. It's even referenced Halls of the Dead. We have more Gehennas in the Islamic. Yeah, there's so many references. We're gonna maybe make more progress on this. You see how this flies and if people are interested.
Yeah.
So, but we gonna wrap it up here. Gonna see.
Yeah,
We have your lovely face there now.
It's been really fun. I will. This camera will very soon go black.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. It has been really nice listening to you.
Well, thank you, Fredrik. This has been awesome. We're gonna see if the interest is there and see if people want to hear more. We stick to English. We much more prefer to speak Swedish, of course, but we're sticking our nose out in the ether, so to speak.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
I used to recognize when I talk to people about Swedish history, they don't know a damn shit. I'm not pretending that I know everything, but I at least wanted to send like a little message that that's interesting history going on here. There's so much more we can talk about, and it's a broad everything about history. It's not simple.
Exactly, and it's not only it's so many things. It's a lot of people have been here before, so
Yeah,
and now we are here, so we have to continue something.
exactly. And now with the internet and so we just have to use this tool as long as we possibly have the tools.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
So,
Fredrik.
really nice.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Fredrik.